Hi and welcome to the weekly predictions based on astrology for the week of April 6th, 2020. First, let's do a quick recap of the predictions for the previous week. In terms of the direction for the stock market, I was correct that the market was pretty much going or mainly went down last week, in particular Monday and Friday. I predicted that there would be big drops, and they were, and Tuesday was also a down day as predicted. Now, I did think that after the drop on Tuesday, there will be a bounce back up on Wednesday, and then Thursday will be a down day. But actually on Wednesday, there was an even larger drop, and the bounce back was on Thursday. In terms of other predictions, I have an ongoing prediction, basically that for the remainder of this year, that there is a increased probability of strong earthquakes and news about major leaders either passing away or being removed or losing their power status somehow. And for last week, we had that influence was particularly strong, and I specifically pointed out March 31st and April 3rd as peak dates where that influence was particularly strong. And indeed, we did have a large 6.5 earthquake in Idaho in the US, and that particular earthquake was strongest that it was felt since 1983. There were no deaths or any major destruction. There, I guess, some destruction. Some highways were blocked with rock slides, etc., but nothing too crazy. Since then, there have been several hundred aftershocks. So, of course, there's a probability of a strong aftershock still, remains for some time. However, likely there was no major destruction associated with that earthquake. There's also another strong earthquake, like 5.9, I guess, worth mentioning, in Indonesia on the 4th of April. However, again, there was no major destruction associated with that. Of course, we have other tensions, this COVID-19, and this is sort of a ongoing, slowly progressing, I would say, disaster, so to speak, but I'm not aware of any other individual event type disasters that occurred last week. In terms of leaders either passing away or kind of losing their power, whether resigning or being removed, etc., we had news that Lufthansa CFO had resigned, and there was also, of course, news that Boris Johnson has been hospitalized with COVID-19, and already starting this week, as of Monday, the 6th of April, he was placed in ICU. Hopefully he recovers, obviously. We don't want anybody to suffer for no reason. Let's see, so I also made predictions back in actually June of 2019 that this whole period, particularly end of March, especially March 22nd through 31st, will be quite an intense time period, and specifically March 22nd and 31st would be important dates. And indeed we had, that's actually, I guess, the week before, but in retrospective we can see that the 23rd of March was a major market bottom. And also on the at the end of March, let's see, we did have also, of course, down days for the market, and this major earthquake, and we also had some other just disasters in the world. Again, I'm not sure how frequently that happens. We did have news about the floods and mudslides destroying homes and bridge in central Peru, and we also had news just this on Monday that strong cyclone Harold had wreaked some destruction in on the Pacific Islands, Solomon Islands, and Vanuatu Islands. And not only this obviously qualifies as a major disaster, but also I specifically made prediction in for the previous week that April 2nd and 3rd will see increased news about oil, gas, wet weather, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, water, navy, etc., all these Neptunian topics. And of course, this cyclone Harold, which is a Category 5 cyclone on the Fiji scale with 165 mile per hour winds. It actually formed on the 2nd of April. And also last week, on the 4th of April, we had an announcement that the OPEC emergency meeting was postponed from the 6th to the 9th of April. So we did have news associated with like oil, gas, and again Neptunian matters right around the same time. Let's see. There was also news on the 3rd. Again, 3rd of April was also a day with important kind of signatures of various like troubles, problems, disasters, and we did have in the US, there was a major fire at the Southwest Florida International Airport that spanned around 15 acres and destroyed thousands of rental cars. Let's see, so moving on to this week, as I already mentioned, the time period from about end of February through early April was rather the most critical time, where we had this conjunction of multiple planets and some other aspects. So definitely this tensions surrounding the COVID-19 progression and its effect on the economy. Obviously, this will be a long-lasting effect because those planets are still kind of more or less together, and we have Saturn being one of them, and planetary conjunction was in Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn. So all of those, these are long-term sort of cycles, and so the effect of these will be felt for a long time. So it's not like we're, the week had passed and we have completely new day. However, the planets now are somewhat separating, and so this week is not going to be as intense as previous week. And long story short, I predict that there's a great probability of this being an up week, and only I think Tuesday is where I believe the market may go down. Then Monday and then Wednesday through Friday look more like updates to me. And I'm recording this on Monday, the 6th of April, and I did already post my predictions the day before on Sunday at tolstunka.com. But I do see that Monday was indeed a positive, or rather an up day for the markets. Ongoing predictions, sort of a global background predictions, we have continuing background influence, where we have increased probability of various disasters, mudslides, rock slides, earthquakes, various seismic activity kind of events, volcanic eruptions, violent attacks, and problems for leaders, where again they're attacked, or they step away, or they resign, or they lose power. And this continues through the end of this year and this week. Peak dates for that are April 6th through 8th. And like I said, we did have just today news about Boris Johnson being transferred to the ICU. Also, on-off all year, but increasing mid-March through early to mid-April. So I guess this covers this week as well. There's going to be increased focus on governmental regulations, various embargoes, taxes, tariffs, reorganization of various like structures, be it the governmental structure or corporate structure, and there may be some shakeups for the established corporations, and this could be due to some natural disasters, such as something collapses, like literally a building, or it could be due to news about various scandals, corruption, or attacks on corporate leaders, but basically some sort of either violence, again, either caused on the outside or through natural disasters, but basically not a good week for any sort of leaders who are at the top, be it, like I said, in the government or corporations, and or there may be news about restructuring at various like established corporations because of basically various tensions and scandals. Let's see, for US period from beginning of 2020 till basically the end of 2021 is a significant period where there may be increased kind of news about international agreements, negotiations, diplomatic kind of relations, partnerships, and particularly related to communication and transportation businesses, as well as mining, trash recycling, nuclear power, and also things like sort of that are underground, literally, such as, like I said, recycling underground or spying, hacking, security, and also taxes, insurance fraud. So there may be increased kind of focus on developments in those areas, and there may be increased efforts made to kind of either restructure how these areas are controlled, or basically there may be some secret manipulation going on, which again, some power struggle over who's sort of in charge, or news about bankruptcy, again, because some entity loses sort of its source, I guess, of power, which I guess is money, or loses some perks that could be, taxes, or it's just there's too much debt and it can't pay. So basically, financial problems and, like I said, bankruptcies and or at least increased controls and restructuring, reorganization, and that's for US, especially communication, transportation. And independently of that, we do have now, basically this year and next couple of years, Saturn is going to be in Aquarius, and that would coincide with increased, that's global, just for US, increased controls over all of the Aquarian topics, which would include something like aerospace or airlines, cloud services providers, telecoms, internet, and of course there might be invention in that area. Like we had a similar period back in like 1991 where we had our first website was created. I guess the Linux kernel was, I think, finalized, something like that, and there's some other standards implemented, like we had the first color printer, I believe, or color scanner. So there are some major developments that basically were positive and innovative, and basically things that were ideas, they were able to be implemented on a more kind of a production scale. And I think it was Windows NT also was either announced or came to be, I guess, at that time. And so we have kind of more focus on this distributive sort of architecture. And so right now we can be entering a similar time where there will be, again, more focus on structuring this kind of a energy, this IT, AI, robotics, and internet, airspace. So things will be a little bit more structured, implemented on the more of an industrial scale, but also there may be more intense control from the government. So for example, airlines may be nationalized, because again, this would ensure greater control. And this is a global influence that overlaps with influence that we have for US for this year, next year, that also indicates either problems with taxes or focus on loans, debt, bankruptcies, manipulative kind of events of basically who's in power, and greater controls over companies in, like I said, communication, transportation, real estate, retail sales. So definitely, I would say, pay attention to some of these Uranian kind of areas, because Uranus rules Aquarius both globally and for the US, and that's ongoing background influence. So other influences that are worth mentioning for oil prices, I would say we have this ongoing sort of period from previous month through, I would say about April 12th, where we will have this increased focus on oil prices. Again, obviously there's always interest in oil prices, but kind of more intense concerns. And then after that, things may kind of become a little bit less stressful. However, in around June 8th through 15th, especially 10th and 11th, there may be another major drop in oil prices. And for China and coronavirus, again, things seem to be stabilizing, at least in China, at least from what we see being reported in the news. However, looking at China's chart, period of August through November of 2020 actually remains to be quite intense, and there may be either increased sort of waves, new waves of some sort of virus, either the coronavirus or some other mutation of the virus or some other pandemic, or if not that, then increased news about pharmaceuticals, pollution, some hidden sort of situations where something is being hidden or something is developing in an area that's hidden. So it could be, a hospital, for example, or a research facility that's not necessarily easily accessible, or literally monastery, prison, etc. So there's definitely remains probability of this of new outbreaks or some other focus on healthcare that necessitates basically some major reforms in China, or that maybe the reform itself and how certain things are being handled, or basically related events, and that will be even more intense come August through November. So for this week, as I said, Monday looks pretty good, and it did indeed turn out to be an up day. April 6th through the 8th, especially the 7th, Tuesday, we may expect increased probability of various surprises, accidents, sudden developments related to businesses or projects in the areas of aerospace, IT, telecoms, electricity, high-tech, AI, robotics, cloud service providers, online shopping platforms, social media companies, etc. As I mentioned, there was this big blaze in Florida, which was at the airport, but there may be more things like that where there's a power loss, for example, or greater than expected financial loss, changing how payments are processed, especially online, some surprises, closures or opening of select locations. So the issue may have to do with, like, if you think of the sort of distributed architecture where there's some nodes and, or some stores or some locations, maybe a company has multiple locations around the world, and there's some imbalance with that, where some areas, some locations, some nodes, they have too much, basically to do too much work, and some other have not enough, and so some, basically the ones that are overloaded, can give up, and this may cause service power outages or some problems in communication, for example, between those locations. For US, April 5 and 6 are significant in terms of increased focus on oil, gas, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, healthcare, of course, Navy, religion, beverages, wet weather, etc. And the situation there may involve sales, agreements, communication, or transportation. So there may be some confusion about some of these areas, misunderstandings, miscommunication, or difficulty reaching agreements, or difficulty with transportation, such as some medical supplies are shipped to the wrong place, or miscommunication and delays in agreement to purchase some medical equipment. I have heard about some confusion about, I guess, some masks being shipped to Berlin. But that, I think, was actually happened prior to this, and I haven't really heard about, because this is already April 6th that I'm recording this on. I didn't necessarily hear about any other confusing situations. For China, the 6th is also important, and I was expecting there to be an important public announcement about either financial institutions, banks, earnings, and or currency, such as, like a new goals or vision, new leadership, something about like taking a risk to basically improving maybe earnings, or ensuring partner support by entering into agreements. And there would be some positively kind of perceived development for China, at least sort of locally, internally, I guess domestically is what I'm saying. Again, I haven't really heard. Again, I didn't necessarily go check news for China for the 6th. There's a ±1 day, I would say, probability, so maybe we'll still hear about something like that on the 7th. So for US, 7th and 8th of April may see increased focus on domestic issues of various sorts, including food safety, growing of the food, farming, homeland security, also like banks, savings, basically something that allows to have like storage, for, the rainy day, real estate, and the issue may involve Concerns about communication and transportation, so like local food delivery. Some need to transport either food or farming equipment, food safety, as I said already, car sales, property sales, so basically movement of goods and negotiating how things should be moved. And there may be a push to improve situation in these areas because there may be insufficient communication or insufficient, I guess, quality of transportation. So there may be kind of a increased focus on supporting such businesses to improve these areas. Then on globally for April 9 and 10, there may be increased probability of minor positive news for communication and transportation businesses and or projects related to aerospace, IT, telecoms, electricity, high-tech, AI, robotics, cloud service providers, online shopping platforms, social media companies, etc. So there may be some minor improvements, such as maybe they'll report better earnings or receive some funding, some financial flow may be improved, or some news about sales acquisition, or just about some ongoing negotiations and agreement proceeding kind of better than previously. I also posted at the same blog at lastunka.com some upcoming predictions for May, just because I saw some kind of noteworthy aspects or transits rather for May. So just to quickly look through this, globally and for USA, 6th through 9th of May look to be important for possible major drop in gold prices, especially on the 8th of May. And there may be some important announcements about either US monetary policies or banks or earnings. Then May 9th through 22nd, especially the 20th and 22nd, there may be increased focus on oil, gas, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, navy, wet weather, etc. And there may potentially be strong market drops on the 20th and the 22nd. Then the period of May 25th through 27th, especially the 26th, may see a rise in global tensions, increased seismic activity, attacks, anti-governmental protests, earthquakes, or bad weather, including too much wind and precipitation. And on the 26th, they potentially may be a market down day. Then on May 31st through June 5th, especially June 1st and 2nd, again, there may be a rise in global tensions, important geopolitical events, seismic activity increased, leadership changes, earthquakes, like disasters, accidents, etc. And at that time, there will be some, I was trying to pinpoint that issue in my head basically, but some focus on earnings and expenses. So basically focus on money. And it's something that will be like an ongoing issue for some time, maybe even some weeks, starting with that period where the decision is not being made, and it's basically there's a suspense of some sort, like either should we spend the money, how much will it cost, are we making money or are we not making money, like what is something about the money, and there's some indecision that again may begin at that time, which is again especially early June, but then it may go on for almost like weeks until it's kind of decided, and that at the same time gold value may be in focus at that same exact time because it will be tracking sort of the decision made in this suspended or this ongoing kind of a slowly evolving unclear situation where it will involve again either earnings, expenses, or something to do with money, but not so much money as in like banks, but rather literally money flow, cash availability, cash itself, currencies. And let's see, and then as I mentioned previously, after this sort of period in May, where we'll have some increasing geopolitical tensions, June 8th through the 15th, may see, again, increased focus on gas prices, oil, and also on health and pharmaceuticals. There may be another wave of this COVID-19 outbreak, or if not that, some sort of other outbreak, like something that involves fever, like maybe diarrhea, dehydration, and like cholera, for example. So there may be another time period where we may hear about some infectious disease kind of spreading, and at the same time there may also be increased probability of various accidents, such as that involve like water and fires, or like what we had, similar to what we have back in late January of 2020, like in fire at the marina, fire, at a, let's say, oil rig, or attack on a recycling facility that processes oil, for example. And like I said, June 10th and 9th, 10th and 11th may be major market drop days. So that's it for me for now, and I hope that you're staying safe out there and good health and enjoying these videos, and come back and watch me next week. Until then, catch you guys later. Bye.